I think in general it is hard to forgive.
Right.
Why do you think it's hard to forgive?
I'm gonna make it personal.
Please.
I think the biggest thing with me is like, you know, why would you do that? If you don't understand why someone did something to you or said something to you, you may not understand. It may be hard to forgive that action or whatever it was. I think it's just how you deal with certain things. I'm kind of different. I just feel like if you're a good person, which I believe I am, you don't deserve to have to deal with certain stuff.
Welcome to the Clear in the Air podcast with D and Q.
I'm D.
I'm Q. Yo, man, I like this topic that we're getting ready to talk about. I think it's a very challenging topic, but it's a topic that should be discussed with men and in general as humans, because I feel like a lot of us struggle with this, and in a lot of cases rightfully so. What are we talking about today? We want to talk about forgiveness. Okay, so like I just said, I think there are a lot of situations as to why we could struggle with forgiveness. Ask you this question, bro. What causes unforgiveness?
Unforgiveness. I think it can vary from person to person. Um, but I think that overall, if you've been done wrong and you feel like it's to the point to where it's no coming back from that, then you might have that sense of unforgiveness. You know what I mean? If you can't really understand why you were done wrong, if you're not good at handling disappointment or rejection, it just kind of depends on how you cope with those things and how you react to them. And we'll get more in depth as to how and why you may forgive or not forgive someone for something. So, but I think as an overall consensus, if you feel like you've been slighted or done dirty, you may not want to forgive that person.
True. Why do you think? I think in general it is hard to forgive.
Right.
Why do you think it's hard to forgive?
Um, I'm gonna make it personal.
Please.
Um, in those situations where it may be hard to forgive someone, I think the biggest thing with me is like, why would you do that? Or what, just why? If you don't understand why someone did something to you or said something to you, you may not understand. It may be hard to forgive that action or whatever it was. I know some people who, may say things or do things. It might be the way they was brought up. You know what I mean? And so they could say something, and then you may react to it, and then they kind of over it. You know what I mean? And then they be like, well, what's wrong with you? This and that. Well, you just said this, or you just did this. And they be like, yeah, but that was 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. Well, no, I ain't forget. So it can be like that, man. I think it's just how you deal with certain things. And I'm kind of different. I just feel like if you're a good person, which I believe I am, you don't deserve to have to deal with certain stuff or have to put up with stuff. So, it's different for me. It's different for me. I'm not saying it's the same with everybody. I just know for me it's different.
I agree. I just know number one, that we're all going to have to forgive somebody for something.
Yes, yes.
And I also know that this is life, and we don't always get what we deserve.
Right.
So, and I'm trying not to go here, but I feel like it's really good as a way to challenge us. And it's a good thing to, some people don't want to talk about morality and don't want to talk necessarily about God, and I don't think this is any particular religion. I think all religions would typically suggest forgiveness.
Right. And when I'm talking about the forgiveness, I'm talking about those huge slights, those huge signs of disrespect. I'm not talking about, the minor jokes. I stepped on your shoe, or I wasn't able to come give you a ride, or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about that. Yeah, that's a little stuff. I have a very forgiving spirit. I'm talking about major things.
True.
I don't want to seem like I'm overreacting or embellishing on things.
Well,
we're talking about major.
True, but because we all are different, our level of tolerance can be different as well. So for you, it might be it takes something big. For someone else, people have lost their lives or done a bid because their shoes were stepped on.
Right.
So we all are different.
Right.
And I think when you do start talking about morality, I think it can apply to all of us and hit us all where we need it to hit us, because everybody is not different. So, for example, I like this because it kind of gives a story or an example of how to forgive, but more or less the fact that we need to forgive and that we will probably have to forgive people often. So the disciples in the Bible, they said, well, Jesus, how often should we forgive those who offend us? 7 times? Jesus' response to me was real gangster, because he was like, 70 times 7 in a day. And so when you think about it, whether you get caught up on the number or not, that's a lot of times in the day to forgive somebody for offending you. And I want to go back to something else you said. You said 15 minutes ago. There's things that people have gotten over that they've done to you from 15 years ago, 15 months ago.
Right.
So I think, again, it kind of comes out of kind of your tolerance when you say major things, whatever that might be. But also, on a smaller scale, you just offended me 15 minutes ago, and you got over it that quick.
Right.
Which I think we will end up talking about that whole thing a little bit later, in terms of, how do you say, like kind of that approach when it comes to a person who's offended you. So let me ask this question, because there are some people who will question, why do I have to forgive? And I just gave a story from the Bible per se, and again, it's not a Christianity thing per se. I feel like forgiveness is a worldwide situation, but
it's a human thing. It's a people thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But in the event that you say, I don't feel like I should have to forgive, do you think that forgiving a person is more important for you or for that other person?
It's been said. It says that forgiveness is more so for you. So you don't carry around those feelings of disappointment and anger and sadness. So you should forgive that person for you. Easier said than done, but I get it. I've just had to recently, deal with that. A lot of stuff we're going to talk about, I've had to deal with it. And before we dive into it, the reason I broached you about this topic was for several reasons. One, Since it's our birthday month, we're being a little more open, we're being a little more personal with things we deal with, issues and topics. And so, we want to bring that side to our audience. And two, I showed you this video about two comedians, Rickey Smiley and Arnez J, who have recently squashed their beef after, I forgot how many years, but I think it was almost 20 years, maybe 15 years. And what happened was they had a beef back in the day. They didn't go into details about it. I don't know if it was over a show or money. I'm not sure what it was. But they had a beef, and it was like known in the comedy community that they had this beef. And so Rickey Smiley was saying that, over the years, he was saying, I need to squash this beef with Arnez. I need to reach out to him, this and that, blah, 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 and just never got a chance to do it. And Rickey Smiley was saying he got on the plane. I believe he was flying from Atlanta back home to Birmingham. And who was on the plane?
Oh.
Arnez J. And he said he reached out to him, ended up sitting beside him, and they talked and cried the entire flight home. And he was saying how Arnez J got a call maybe 5 minutes before he was going on stage that his mother had passed away, and he had like the best show he had ever had. And so they just talked about how much time was lost, and they were saying they was gonna go fishing together, and it was just good to see, the growth and maturity. This is from Rickey Smiley's side. He's talking, but it was just good to see the growth and maturity of two men who had an issue, and after all these years, on a random encounter on an airplane, squash all of that and, love each other. And, what I'm saying, want to support each other. They say they're going to do a show together, maybe get on the road together. It was a moving video, and I immediately sent it to you because I wanted you to see it. I was like, man, this is dope. And this is definitely a topic because it talks about forgiveness and, men and being macho and wanting to forgive or maybe not wanting to forgive. And I think the biggest thing was time. Enough time had elapsed to where they were able to push their things to the side.
I think that's real dope.
Yeah.
You kind of touched on one of the reasons why it's probably hard for us to forgive. And I think it is ego. From a male standpoint, I mean, we all can deal with ego and pride, but I know as men, we deal with the ego and pride. We deal with not feeling comfortable enough to deal with issues head on. We can be hurt by how somebody did us and not share that, and then it turns to anger, which is more tied to the macho mindset that a man should have. Okay? I think it's good to mention that because you mean to tell me ego and pride can be the thing in between us?
Man.
You think about even podcasts and stuff like that has people no longer rock with each other, and just different things.
In sports, you know what I mean? In anything, that male ego. You can look movie stars, rappers, the R&B singers, just musicians and
groups that break up because as a result of it.
Yeah, anytime there's that competitive, aspect, you have a potential for that to creep up into the situation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. This is such a dope topic, and I think again because
complex.
It's dope and it's complex.
Yes.
What's dope about it is when you have the Arnez J and Rickey Smiley stories. What's complex and sad, and it can be dope and complex. It can be sad and complex when either we allow ego and pride to get in the way, when time is not on our side and someone passes away and we don't get a chance because we never dealt with the idea of forgiving, that's when it's tough as well. I want to be very clear also that I think struggling with forgiving somebody is I think that's natural. Whether we talking about it from a morality standpoint, whatever. Forgiveness is always going to be a challenge. Doesn't matter whether you consider yourself a good person, bad person, whatever it is. I think forgiveness is a challenge because, again, we are always going to be offended. We're going to be offended by people we know, people we don't know, people who we consider close friends, and even from family.
Right.
So, I mean, do you have any experiences that you would talk to us about in regards to forgiveness?
Yeah, I mean, I actually got two, two that I've kind of dealt with the past few months. One you know about very specifically. That one was just, that one was kind of easy to move on from. This friendship, because I've had people like you and other people to say, and even notice that friendship, it was just very exhausting. It was very exhausting, very taxing. It was just like, yeah, it's too much. I'm good.
Well, it gets to a point also where you do all you can do.
Right. You do all you can do, and you just, now it's just out of your hands. And I think that's the biggest thing with me, because I try to help people and do what's best for people. You know what I'm saying? But sometimes you got to wash your hands of the situation. And so that situation was rather easy. I have forgiven that person, but that situation, that friendship is no more. The second situation is a little more complex. I know we keep saying that word. This was somebody that I've been cool with. I've been good friends with for a long time. Back to school, actually. Went to middle school, high school, but got close, super close afterwards. Considered him a brother. Had a situation, an unfortunate situation that occurred. At the time, I felt I was well within my right to react how I reacted, but I immediately realized that was out of character for me, and I didn't handle it the correct way. Neither one of us did, and we both knew that we did. The difference was how we reacted to the situation afterwards and handled the situation. I felt like I was remorseful for how I handled the situation, and the other person was spiteful and petty and bitter. And so some things were done, some things were said, a lot of it at my expense. And so that's one of those situations. And it hurt, bro. It hurt. I don't even like talking about it. I've maybe talked about it to 2 or 3 people. I just don't like to talk about it. Even right now, I'm getting I can't even explain. But, this is what we're doing. We're getting more personal in these episodes, especially during this month. This was one of those situations where we talked about earlier, where do you really forgive a person? If so, are you doing it to forgive them, or are you doing it for yourself? And in this situation, I'm totally doing it for myself, because I don't want to harbor that anger and that disappointment with this person. But I'm not friends with this person. Our friendship will never be the same. And that's just how I feel. And a lot of people saying, well, wait, time and do this, time heals all wounds. Okay, I don't see that right now. I don't have to be friends with this person. There have been some attempts, but I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And the biggest thing is because, bro, like, it was no reason for it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you was feeling a certain type of way, something within you should have said, yo, this is my boy. This is not right what I'm doing. I should not do this. I've known this dude for years. I know his family. You know what I'm saying? And then, not to go deep into it, but, you know what I'm saying? I had done a lot for this person specifically in the past, like 6 to 8 months before the situation went down. So even if you was upset and in the moment, bro, those things should have trumped how you was feeling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And again, if because I feel like I'm a good person, like I didn't deserve that. You know?
Right.
And so I wash my hands of the situation. I have forgiven him for me, but yeah, I'm done with the situation. I'm done. And it's unfortunate, bro, because we were so close. Birds of a feather. A lot of people cannot believe that we're not cool. But it's just, it's tough, man. But that's the decision I have made.
I got you.
And I plan to stick with that decision. I do want to say that this person, because I'm sure people will see it and it may whatever, but I've always said that this person is a great person with a big heart, and he's done a lot for a lot of people, including myself. He has provided some dope experiences, and I've always been appreciative of this person. Good dude, good family, good father, just a great dude. Something happened and we didn't see eye to eye on how it was resolved, and I unfortunately had to end our friendship.
Yeah.
So
I want to tap into something that you said, because I think there will be people who say, well, how can you say that you truly forgave if you ended the friendship? I don't think that forgiveness is based on a continued closeness. I'm trying to be careful because I don't want there to be the idea that there's a lack of sensitivity to this one particular thing that keeps being in my mind that people go through. So I won't say it. But just think of your most heaviest offense where a person meant ill intent. They would do it again, okay, if given the opportunity. And even if they wouldn't, I believe you can forgive a person and not trust a person again. I think those are two separate things. So I can forgive you whether I'm doing it for you, the person who needs to be forgiven, or whether I'm doing it for myself, and not be around you anymore, because I do believe we also have to protect ourselves. And I think part of that protection could be the fact that I even start out with forgiving, because as we were talking about that, sometimes the weight of unforgiveness bogs us down more than that individual, and that individual who offended us may forget about it. They may not even recognize or realize why, when you get around them, you feel uncomfortable. Hey, no problem. But you know why you feel the way you feel, and so I don't want to. I want to say some stuff a little later on, so I don't want to get into it too deep. But this is another thing, because some people will say, well, you don't truly forgive unless you forgive and you forget. I still feel like those are two separate things.
yeah, it's a slippery slope, bro.
I don't think it is, though.
I'm agreeing with what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm saying it's a slippery slope, because in my situation, I'm choosing to love that person from a distance.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be cool. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
we just don't. I've been in the same room with this person since then, and I'm on one side, this person is on the other. You know what I'm saying? We've been in several places a couple times, and it just is what it is, bro. Like it. I don't. I'm a firm believer that I can forgive you, but I don't have to rock with you no more.
Yeah, so that's right.
And it's just what it is. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? It is. It's just what it is, bro. It is. Even the first situation I was telling you about, again, that was just easier. Like, I'm not from a distance. Stay over there.
So, question for both individuals, there has been a ending of the friendship.
Oh yes, yes, yes.
However, there was a forgiveness that was easier in one of the situations and a forgiveness that was harder in another situation.
Yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure of that.
Yes. Yes. The first situation that was easier to, you know, I could forgive, and then, you know, it's some other issues going on with that person, and so, you know, but a lot of people would question me like, you know, why are you friends with this person? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, and he's a great dude too. You know what I mean? And was just going through some things, going through a rough patch. But at some point, you just gotta separate yourself. And I knew that point was coming, and so when it came down to that point, it was easier. The second one was more difficult because I didn't know it was coming. We didn't know that situation was going to happen. It was an unfortunate situation. And again, I'm definitely not putting all the blame on him. I'm definitely taking some of the blame for how it went down. Mm-hmm. And I definitely did something that was out of character for me.
Right.
You know, and I apologize profusely for that.
Yeah.
So, and again, like I said, that next day I woke up being very remorseful and wanting to address the situation, but it was not handled the same way on that person's end.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's why it was more difficult, because I have more history with that person.
Gotcha.
And again, I know his family. I know his child. I know his. You know. We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah.
So.
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that there's anything that is unforgivable?
Oh, man. Obviously, the you know, you can talk about the severe stuff. Like, if you harm my family or my loved one or say something, you know, even say something bad about them, I think it ain't no coming back from that.
Yeah.
But... or if you physically harm me, or
yeah.
But anything short of that, if you show like genuine remorse, my thing is this. Here's my thing. If you apologize and don't do it again, and make me, you know, show me that you're not gonna do it again, you can be forgiven, bro. But if you continue to do it, your apology is less and less effective. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a big words person. Like, words of affirmation as far as love language is towards the bottom for me.
Yeah.
Because you can tell me you love me, but if you don't show me, it don't mean
it's as good as dung.
Yeah, as dung. Dunghill. Yeah, it's a good word, bro.
So I'm gonna go into a brief story, and then I'm going to actually answer something that I didn't earlier. And then I'm going to mention something that I don't think we talk about enough. And then we'll clear the air. So, I had a situation as well. Family member who, some years ago, to me was very deceptive. And it played a part in another relationship that I was in at the time. And I was reached out to by someone who was close to the family member, and they told me about some things that was going on, because out of respect for me. So
this is the situation I know about.
That's the situation you know about. So for me, I ended the one relationship. The other situation, still family, but I have made a decision to keep my distance. Now, I have seen them a few times since. I still reach out on birthdays at times when I can remember. Um, I do photography, and at an event, this individual and siblings I purposely put together to take some photographs of. Again, because I will forgive you, but it does not mean that I have to necessarily be around you as if like things never happened. So I tend to feel like I don't think forgetting is, I think that's God's job. God will forgive and forget and wipe it clear. I think for myself, I can forgive, and I might even try to forget. But I don't know if I necessarily will be able to forget it, and I don't know if it's necessarily required for me to forget it if I intend to protect myself in the future. Because the truth of the matter is, I could go through this, what do you call it? I can go through this process of forgiving, and you remain the same. The difference is I can control myself. I can't control that other individual. Mm-hmm. So that's why I feel that way when it comes to that. When we go back to saying if it's for you or for the person, I actually believe it's for both. Because I do believe that sometimes people need us to forgive them, maybe because you were just in a bad part of your life and you did a lot of things that it was nothing personal against me, but it just was where you were at that point in time, and you mentally could not do any better. And even if it's for some of the worst things, like some of the things you said, that's another thing. But I do feel like it's both. I need to forgive for me, and I need to forgive. I feel like because I have that burden to do so, morally, okay, which is not necessarily, it's outside of myself. Okay, now, do I think that there's anything that's unforgivable? I actually don't think there's anything that's unforgivable. However, I can forgive you, and I can be all the way over here. Like you see people who have had family members murdered.
Right. I was just about to say that, bro.
And you have, I didn't want to go here, but to make the point, family members who have been raped, or children who've been raped. Now, as a male with two daughters, a father of two daughters, and I pray I don't, because of me saying this, be put in a position to where I ever have to forgive someone for these situations or anything heinous. But I don't think that there's anything that is unforgivable. Now, again, I don't have to be around you. I don't have to have a relationship with you to forgive you. Because obviously, if you do some things, I don't have any interest in having a relationship with you. But that's how I feel in terms of that.
So look, bro, you know I watch a lot of true crime.
I know you do, bro.
You know, I love true crime. And besides having to notify the family that their loved one has been murdered, is now deceased, one of the hardest things is to see how it affects them after. So in the courtroom, when, let's say they go to jail for life, or let's say they get off, only get 10 years or 20 years, when you see the families, like when they make that impact statement, and bro, I that would be tough.
Oh no,
that would be tough. I think I would love to think that I'm a very forgiving person, and that nothing is unforgivable. But in those severe instances, I know me. I think it would be very tough. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
So.
I want to be clear again, and I think I'm going to say this, and then we'll clear the air. I'm not saying how easy or hard it would be. Mm-hmm. I'm saying, would I? And my mindset is that I would always, like you say, want to forgive, regardless of how easy or hard it is. So that's kind of where my stance is, and I feel what you're saying as well. I think something that's not talked about as much is the ability to forgive yourself. Because it's real easy to say that you won't forgive another person for what they've done to you. Sometimes what we do to us, what I do to myself, is far worse than what anyone ever could do to me. Because I'd like to think that we have goals and the fact that we think of ourselves as good people. But what happens when good people make mistakes?
Right.
What happens when good people don't do the right thing and they know better? And see, it's when that happens when we can find it very hard to forgive ourselves.
You preaching to me, bro. That
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
In that situation, man. I was so disappointed in myself with how I handled that situation. Because again, it was out of character for me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I definitely was disappointed in myself. So and I thought, a lot of stuff that happened after that, I was like, man, if I just would have handled it differently. But in my defense, it was a lot built up. It wasn't just out of the blue. That situation that night was just a culmination of maybe like months and months and months of built up anger and disappointment with this person.
Right.
So it unfortunately came to a head that night. Were you finished?
Oh.
Okay. I wanted to say this, and it maybe it should wait till we clear the air, but I wanted to say that, we talked about the pandemic and changes, things we wanted to do in the pandemic because we had nothing but time. And one of the things I came into the pandemic doing or wanting to do was evaluating, some of my friendships and some of my relationships and seeing if they were, adding value to my life or taking away. And one of the things I was thinking to myself was, I think a lot of people are taking my kindness for weakness. Because I'm very nice to people. I look out for people. I try to make sure everybody's straight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I just felt like, maybe some people was just taking my kindness for weakness.
Right.
And so, when these unfortunate incidents happened, I was already on that evaluation tip.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it was just, and one of the big things that I was standing firm on, if we cool, but you with somebody that has an issue with me, and you allow them to talk bad about me in your presence, and you don't say nothing, I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you funny. I'm not looking at that person because I know what they are. You know what I'm saying? But if you allowing that to happen in your presence and you ain't checking that person, oh, we got a problem.
Even if it's simply, I respect how you feel.
Right.
Not around me.
Right. I'm not saying your beef is my beef.
Yeah, not around me.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because nobody can talk bad about you in front of me.
True.
It's just not gonna happen.
True.
And I'm gonna start respectfully, like, yo, that's my man. Like,
Right.
Or I could just remove myself from the situation. But I'm not gonna allow somebody to talk disrespectfully about you in front of me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, and I expect for you to, if you hear that I did that, to check me on it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's another thing. That's a whole nother topic that we could talk about is accountability.
Accountability, bro.
And it lacks in so many different places. But we're not gonna go into that because that's another topic.
Right.
Can we clear the air?
Go ahead, man. Because I'm tired of talking about it.
I feel like the perfect way to end is to give some tips on how to forgive. And again, I don't think you need to be a professional to forgive. In fact, we all should be professionals. So I'm going to give some tips, and I will hope that when you guys see this, drop some tips and things that have worked for you in your forgiving journey. Okay? First things first. I think we do best to acknowledge the offense. Okay? Within ourselves. Yo, they hurt you, they hurt you. They slighted you, they slighted you. They offended you, they offended you. Now, I'm careful with the whole offended word because I feel like we become offended over everything.
Right.
We look for offense.
Right.
But there are legitimate situations where people do you wrong and they had every intention to do it, or they did not. Right. Which leads me to the next thing.
Before you go, that's a hard step for us men to acknowledge that we've been hurt.
I agree.
We've been offended.
I agree.
Been working on that.
I agree.
Because, a lot of times we can hold it inside or just...
True. And it morphs, if you ask me, into anger, which is what we said earlier.
Yes.
So you being hurt morphs to that anger.
Right. It just festers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like anything, if you let something bad just sit there, it gets worse.
Right.
Some food that begins to rot on day 5, let it continue to sit there 30 more days and it's going to be worse.
Right.
Stink worse.
Yes.
Which again leads me to my next thing. If possible, it's not always possible, if possible, try to make amends with that person. Try to talk to that person. I will say that sometimes people don't even know that they have offended you. I think that's very rare, but sometimes people say things and do things and they're unaware that you've been impacted negatively by it. If you can, try to have that conversation with that person, okay? I will say this, based on that conversation, that should not determine whether you forgive a person or not. What it should determine is how that friendship or that relationship continues, okay? And this might be not the most important part, but the part that we should all understand and know. I have said it a few times. I feel like the thought of forgiveness is a process. Okay, we talked about how to grieve, that being a process. So when we're processing emotions that we have, understand it is a process. So it may not be that you forgive a person 30 minutes, in a year. What I do suggest is that you forgive a person as soon as you possibly can, which means you have to address it. Going back to the first step, you have to acknowledge it. So I do truly feel like knowing that it's a process and that it may not happen tomorrow is very important. Especially if you want to start looking at it from a moral standpoint, because then now if you're not able to do that quickly or as quick as you feel you should, then there's this guilt which adds another layer to things. And I think lastly, when we talk about how to forgive, it's also to just let it go. Whether we're talking about forgiving ourselves, okay, whether we have repented or whether that person has apologized or not, it should not be a factor moving forward on if you forgive yourself or forgive that person. So, hopefully this episode has helped you guys. I know just talking about it, I know you didn't want to relive it, but it has helped me to be able to say, man, it's a reminder, I'm going to be offended. But am I going to make that decision that I'm going to forgive? So, as usual, we appreciate you guys and your continued support. Please, we intend to talk about more men-related topics and how we're impacted. As we've said before, we don't feel as if men deal with our emotions enough or in the most effective way, and we want to talk about it. So make sure you're following us on YouTube. Make sure you're following us for the audio experience on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Make sure that you're also checking us out on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Peace.